Today I wanted to talk about why and how I built my own DIY film negative scanner. So it all started basically with me being a little bit unhappy about how the scans from my local film shop were coming out. Um, I just didn't really. There was something about them. It wasn't particularly the resolution or anything. I always kind of asked for the best resolution possible, but there was something about them that just didn't really feel right. So I started to kind of investigate. Like, well, I'm kind of with the film photography thing for the long run. I really enjoy it. I really like the process. So I definitely will be doing a lot more roles, a lot more, photography on that. So I thought like, well, something like a film scanner perhaps could be a good investment. So I started researching a little bit on, flatbed scanners, all the different options you have as an enthusiast, I suppose, to scan your film. And one that was commonly mentioned was the DSLR, or just like a DIY camera scanner for the film. So the way this works is any digital camera you can use to basically scan your film. All you need is something to hold your film, a light source, and your camera. Then you can take photos of your negatives, and then those photos you can invert in a photo editing application such as Lightroom to then, get your positives. So I started kind of looking at all of this, comparing, do I get better quality with a DSLR or maybe a flatbed scanner? And generally, the idea I got from forums and different discussions on this topic is that the flatbed scanners are usually quite slow and not always give the best results. Obviously, they are, a piece of equipment that you have to purchase. On the other hand, the camera DIY scanner is usually, you obviously need the camera, you need a light source, and you need a macro lens. Now, I already had a DSLR, I already had a macro lens, so I thought like, well, this is probably the cheapest option for me right now to explore. So I started looking around how to build one of these, and the concept is quite simple. All you really need is exactly that. As I said before, you need something to hold your film. Obviously, it needs to be flat, and it needs to, have the opening big enough so your 35 millimeters or 120 millimeters frame is in its entirety visible, and you need a light source to light it from the other side. Now, this light source, usually consists of white light, and there were two kind of sites on the internet, one of them saying you need a high CRI or color rendition index light, meaning that the LED or whatever light source you have reproduces as much of the color spectrum as possible. The other school of thought, I suppose, was those people who were saying that you should actually have a narrow band light source, meaning that the red, green, and blue channels are quite separated from each other, and they are in, as the name suggests, they are in a narrow band. Now, that option I'm still exploring. I'm still kind of researching a little bit. Obviously, once I built this, I haven't done much else, but it is still something that I want to explore further. However, for now, the option I went with, which seemed reasonable and logical to me, was something that had a high color rendition index. And I found a light from SmallRig for about 50 euros, which had like a CRI of 98, which was good enough for LED lights. And what's also important, and I'll be showing obviously like B-roll of this, is that the light itself was quite diffuse. So it already, the light panel that I bought has a diffuser on it. So instead of seeing like the individual LED diodes, you get a really even kind of light source. Now, I've seen people using these sort of copy lights or any other sort of source of light that will get you an even white light on this, at least the surface of the film. So realistically, anything similar to this would work. My initial proof of concept actually was to use my regular light and just set up this kind of rig where I had the film on a piece of glass. I had the light source from underneath and the camera above. Obviously, this was like really uncomfortable to use, but it was the first kind of test that I did. Like, okay, how can I convert my negatives just taking photos with my camera? And that started to work out okay. So I thought like, okay, let's move on. Let's do like an actual project. Let's actually build something that's. My initial concept was like a flat base, so it would sit nice and stable. Something fairly heavy, so it wouldn't move, and then some sort of like pillar, so to call it, to then hold the film and hold the camera. I was looking at different like options in hardware stores and everything. I've actually seen as well, which I wish I saw sooner, is people using copy stands for this, because they already pretty much have everything you need. They have a solid base, they have a leg or like a pillar to then put your camera on it. But yeah, essentially what I came up with is this, which I showed earlier, and I'll probably be showing the B-roll of it as well. But as you can see, there's a base, there's the light, then you have the film holder in the middle, and then finally the camera with a ball head. But I wanted the ball head to be able to obviously adjust the camera so it's parallel to the film plane. A nice trick you can use is having a mirror where your film is supposed to be, and then basically aligning the center of your lens, the center of your camera with that mirror. The biggest issue I found really was finding a decent film holder. I was looking online, and most options that you can buy are pretty quite expensive. I mean, I've seen stuff ranging from £80, the cheapest, all the way to a couple hundreds. There's obviously stuff like, I think it was called Negative Supply. They have their own like whole kit that you can purchase, which is pretty much what I've built, but kind of, already done. You only have to assemble it. But obviously that's expensive, and it would kind of defeat the purpose of this. The most expensive part that I paid for this was the light, which was, as I said, €50. The metal pieces, I just went to a junkyard and I bought them for like €4, basically by the weight. I welded it with a friend, and all the other like holes and screws and stuff I just had laying around. But even if you don't, they're not expensive. Obviously, if you don't have tools, if you don't have like basic hardware stuff, then maybe it's not worth it. But I think most people have this sort of thing at home. So if you want to follow along, then be my guest. It's quite fun. It's quite fun to experiment in this way. The film holder, the idea I landed on was to get used or spare camera parts. I was basically searching on eBay and other places for used cameras, film cameras that weren't working, that were only for parts, because you could buy them for like £1 to £10, really, for a bunch of them. I ended up getting some for free from this film shop that I wasn't happy with the scans. And they gave me 2 old cameras that were basically only for parts, and I disassembled them. And what I used is essentially the part of the camera that holds the film, that slides the film, and the back plate that holds the film flat against the opening of the shutter. Essentially what you get is what I have here, which is a disassembled, dismembered camera body with the opening for the film to go through. I've also later on built the same kind of thing out of Legos, and it was funny because I got this one piece. If you're familiar with Legos, then you probably recognize it. I found this piece, and I don't know why, I just held the film onto it, and I realized this opening is pretty much exactly the measurements. It's a little bit wider, but it's pretty much exactly the same measurements as 35mm film. And I thought like, oh, I could build this out of Legos as well. Obviously this is plastic, it's not going to scratch the film. So I built this little contraption, but essentially it's the same thing as here. Overall, it was quite an interesting experience. Obviously, I really love to kind of play around with this type of thing of like a little bit of like engineering or just kind of problem solving and trying to get stuff to work as I wanted to. And in this case, obviously, I wanted to make it as cheap as possible, just to, you know, see how much quality could I get. Is this feasible? Like, can I actually get good film scans with this setup? If I can, then I'm happy to like invest more into a better setup. As I said, maybe in the future I'll build one out of a copy stand, or maybe I will purchase one of those film holders that also rewinds the film and like not rewinds but advances the film as you scan it. There's plenty of options for that. But for the purposes of this, I'm really quite happy because, you know, I just get some gloves, I put the film in, I start advancing and I take the pictures. Now the last thing I did was grab a cable to connect the camera to the laptop so I can see the images bigger, so I can see if there's any dust or anything. And dust really is the biggest problem. As I was saying, the experience was really cool and I ended up getting really good results. I can probably get quality as good as the Frontier. It's a little bit hard to describe because it's just a different look. Also because of the fact that then using Lightroom and I've been using this plugin called Negative Lab Pro to convert my films, you can choose from a really wide selection of conversions, whether that's, you know, Frontier or Noritsu or you know, then adjusting all the parameters that you can think of how this film negative is being interpreted. I found it quite fun to then also have the option to mess around with it. So I'm not only limited to now what I get from the lab, I can actually set the look that I want out of those negatives. I always try to stay as truthful to the film stock as possible, so I try to go like pretty neutral adjustments. But so far I've been doing tests with negatives that I have scanned from labs and those same negatives then I'm trying to rescan with my setup, and I can see that I'm getting really good results as well. So yeah, my next steps really are trying to figure out how I can get the dust problem solved, or at least try to get it as best as I can. Obviously I can always correct it with within Lightroom or within Photoshop to like remove some of the dust specks, but obviously to save on work I would prefer to get as little of it as possible. Also, as well as the dust, one thing that I'd really like to improve, and I've already started looking into it, is improving the overall resolution, or not resolution, but how close can I get to the film. So this is a macro lens. It's a 17-70 zoom macro lens. It's surprisingly good from Sigma. And even though you can get really close to the film, I mean, you can see that, you know, you're pretty much, I don't know, like 4 or 5 centimeters away from the lens, but it still doesn't really fill out the frame of the sensor. So I've purchased a Canon FD 100mm macro lens, which I'll be using on my film camera as well, to which I'll buy an adapter for the Canon, or perhaps for a Sony, because I'm looking into buying a Sony mirrorless camera. But regardless of that, getting an adapter, and with that lens, I'm hoping I can get closer to the film. I may need to adjust some of the distances here, I mean, just to make it physically fit. But I'm hoping it will fill out more of the frame, therefore getting me even better resolution with the scans, which at the moment are great, but you know, if I can use the real estate that I have with the sensor, then that'll be even better. So overall, it's been a really fun process. It's been really entertaining, really rewarding as well to, you know, see your negatives and getting good results out of your scans, and actually being able to compare them with the lab really makes me hopeful that, you know, on the long run I'll be able to not only enjoy this process but also save quite a bit of money, because these lab scans are quite expensive. And yeah, if you want to build something similar, then there's really a few things that you need to consider. Firstly, obviously, having a digital camera, having a macro lens, and then just a good light source and something to hold the film.